The next category is exempt use. So here we are thinking about what types of industries or businesses does the state want to encourage to come to the state. So in the Midwest, we have a predominance of manufacturing exemptions. California is a state that historically did not have a manufacturing exemption because they did not want to encourage manufacturers. That has changed. They now have a partial exemption there. We have some interesting exemptions popping up in states that are trying to encourage clean industries, such as high tech and data centers. So you'll see those types of exemptions pop up. Another exemption that we're starting to see a lot more frequently is film and movie and TV production types of exemptions. New York has a great exemption on that. So they're trying to encourage investments, trying to encourage businesses to come to those states. These always require some sort of an exemption certificate that needs to be provided in order for the seller to not collect tax. So the most common, as I said, is manufacturing. But what you need to think about, what exactly is manufacturing? In Texas, an ice machine at a restaurant is considered manufacturing. A bakery in a grocery store is manufacturing. So you want to not keep yourself very narrowly thinking about this. If you are making a change to inputs, then you may want to look and see if manufacturing is broadly defined in your state or narrowly defined. Once you know if you're a manufacturer, then you have to figure out what pieces or what types of purchases qualify for that exemption. Machinery, the actual equipment, what about repair parts, what about utilities, what about packaging or packaging equipment, consumable supplies, R&D, all of those different types of components or different things that you might buy inside a manufacturing facility. You also need to understand what is the beginning and ending part of the process. The majority of the states say that manufacturing begins where there is a change to the raw ingredients, which means things like your receiving department and your inventory storage is not going to be included in the exemption. It will be taxable. At the end of the process, it is usually when the item is completed and ready for sale. Is it ready for sale to the end consumer or ready for sale to your consumer? And that will be determined, that will determine how much of the packaging process will be included in manufacturing. Most of the states say that you just have to have predominant use of the equipment, which is 50% or more. So if I am using something like a forklift, and that forklift is doing a variety of different duties, if I am moving between production stages, then that is probably going to be considered a manufacturing use of that forklift. But if I'm bringing raw materials to the beginning or finished goods to the storage and warehousing, that would be excluded. If I'm using one forklift, do I have more than 50% of it being used in the intra-production movement? If so, then I've got a full exemption on that forklift. But if I'm in an exclusive state like Massachusetts, using that little bit to do inventory movement to the beginning would make that whole forklift taxable. The other thing you look at is direct or indirect use. So direct is when the piece of equipment comes into direct contact with the item being produced. Indirect use would be things that don't necessarily do that. So we get into things like quality control. If something is done on every item, I have a scale that every product goes over to make sure it's within tolerance, that's probably going to be direct. But if I have an offline quality control lab that every 100th item I pull off to test it, that's probably going to be indirect. And then most states include new or replacement machinery, but there are some that only provide an exemption for new machinery or machinery that increases capacity. So what are some of the other types of exempt uses we see? R&D, call centers, agricultural spaceport, warehousing is another one that we're seeing pick up, and that film production that I talked about.